Undiagnosed or diagnosed, ADHD can be an absolute riot to deal with. I'm right there with you. I was diagnosed with combined ADHD last year, and in this video I'm going to take you through some of the ways that I manage my ADHD without medication and my personal 3-step system for helping to deal with my chaotic brain. Disclaimer, I am not a medical professional, I am just neurodiverse. I want to help people pre and post a diagnosis. So if you are undiagnosed, waiting on medication, or just don't feel like they're the best fit for you, advice ahoy, I am here. I like to split my ADHD care plan into 3 sections. I've got number 1, which is basic physiological needs, number 2, which is my emotional needs, and number 3 is my accommodations and kind of practical lifestyle factors that I put in place. So, step number 1, basic physiological needs. The ones I'm going to focus on for this section are water, food, sleep, and clothing, but also / temperature. First of all, water. I always carry a water bottle on me wherever I go. I didn't do this for a long time because I used to buy reusable water bottles and try and get a nice one to try and encourage me to use it, and then I would always lose it and spend a lot of money trying to replace the water bottles that I would lose all the time. The way that I would deal with this is get yourself 2 or 3 or even 4 cheap reusable water bottles, have one at home, maybe one at work, maybe one at a friend's house you go to quite often, and one kept in your bag, and it just means that you've always got that source with you, so that if you notice you're getting dehydrated or just notice you're getting a bit overwhelmed, you can access it whenever you want to. I would recommend getting a bigger bottle, maybe even a 2-litre bottle. That is your water for the day. As long as you can drink one of those throughout the day, you're peachy. You're doing good. If you really can't stand the taste of water, good old cordial, some squash can just help take the taste away. Make sure that you're keeping on top of that hydration, because hydration is the station for energy. Say it with me. Hydration is the station for energy. Stay hydrated. Next up is food. I think this one for me is the automatic one that if it's out of balance or I'm hungry, I will straight away resort to being anxious. If I don't eat for, I'd say 5 to 6 hours, I can start spacing out and maybe even dissociating. It is really vital for my well-being and to stay regulated. My main tip to help with food and diet is make things as easy as you can for yourself. I'm not a bad cook, but the energy that it expends to cook, I find very difficult, especially if I'm managing work and trying to keep up a hobby and also want to have a social life. I just get completely overwhelmed, and the first things to slip is usually things like cooking. Some things I found really helpful for this is online shopping instead of in-person shopping. The supermarket is an ADHD nightmare. 1, for overstimulation, lots of noises, lots of sounds, lots of stuff going on, but also for impulse control. I just start throwing things into the basket because I want them. Also, on some shopping websites, I know I used to use Sainsbury's and now I use Asda Stan. There is a repeat basket tool. If you're really low on capacity and you just need to get food in your house, you can repeat your whole basket and then some things, adding 1 or 2 things. Your shopping will take you 5 or 10 minutes maybe. I've started doing like a monthly shop, and I'll stock up on like long life and frozen things, because when I really don't have the capacity to cook, I know that there will usually be something I can make, even if it's just pasta with sauce or something I can stick in the oven really quickly. The oven is my best friend. I love my oven so much. Keeping safe foods and low energy preparation snacks and food in the cupboard is really good. Some of my favorites: breakfast cereal, love me some Cheerios, some Weetabix, things like bananas, just things that can just give you a little pick me up that you go, you know what, I'm really low on energy, but I need to eat something. Usually I find this is best to do with your safe foods. If there's a food that no matter what you're feeling like, it's a real sensory happy thing for you. For me, it's bananas. Love bananas. I think they're absolutely amazing. They give me a good energy kick. It's something that I will always reach for. Therefore, as long as I have them in the house, I will always have a snack and I will not be running on complete empty. The next one is sleep, which I feel like is the biggest one for most people with ADHD. Look at your caffeine intake. I can't have much caffeine anyway. Coffee is a complete no-go. I think it's really important to just look at how caffeine affects you. It's very individual for different people. For some people, it doesn't really affect them. For some people, it makes them really sleepy. My advice would be, if you're feeling even slightly off one day or a little bit anxious, I would avoid caffeine entirely. But if it's something that you like, if you enjoy making coffee in the morning, I've recently got into matcha. Being wary of your consumption of it is really important. Another big one that really helped me is romanticize your sleepy person nighttime routine. Romanticize the hell out of it. Spend some time figuring out what you like to do in the evening that really helps you wind down. For me, I will set an alarm about an hour before I go to sleep, and I know in that time I can do my teeth and do my oral hygiene. I'll do like a nice slow skincare. For me, my skincare routine is really grounded as well. I think it's a really nice sensory experience. Even if it's a 2-step, just wash your face, moisturize your face, it's a really good practice, because even if you struggle to form habits, it's just a nice sense of repetition, and you know that you do that before you sleep, and you can just remind your body, okay, it's time to chill out now. I'll put on my salt rock lamps and orange lamps. It's really good because it mimics the sunset and produces melatonin. I think. The biggest one that's helped me is I got myself an acupressure mat, which is basically a mat with loads of spikes on it. The first few times you use it is a little bit unpleasant, but when you get used to it, it is the most calming and relaxing thing. I like to put on my favorite music and just lie on it for 20 minutes before bed. It really helps take all the tension out of my back and my neck, and especially just gives me a little bit of time to wind down. Some days I'll try and meditate. Sometimes meditation doesn't feel accessible and I'll just breathe and listen to the music. I know some people also use white noise or brown noise. Sometimes I fall asleep. Quite often I do fall asleep on the mat and then I just kind of crawl into bed. If you are a person that really struggles to put your phone down before you go to sleep, intake media on it that is detached from the world. I find that if I scroll on social media right before bed, I can often have disturbed sleep, lots of dreams, because I've just taken on so much information right when I'm trying to power my brain down. Whereas if I watch a safe series, a YouTube content creator I like, play a video game that's kind of my comfort video game, I find that the repetition of that again and the familiarity can still help me wind down in a different way, especially if my brain feels too active to just kind of lie there and try and get some sleep. And finally, for the physiological needs is clothing / bigger bracket temperature. This is the one that I struggle with the most out of all of them. It can sometimes be that you are always too cold or you're always too hot, or your temperature can spike rapidly and it just changes. I'm always too hot. My recommendation for this is comfy clothes and weather appropriate clothes, whether you get too cold or too hot. I have never felt sexy when I've started dissociating because I'm too hot. No matter what the look was, no matter what I was going for, no matter how much of a sexy bitch I was trying to be, no matter how good I look, if I feel terrible in that moment to the point where I stop functioning and I'm overheating and the whole day becomes difficult, it's just not worth it. Also, take some time to realize which fabrics you like. For me personally, I can't deal with velvet. Oh god. Oh, this feel. My other one is also, again, investment in these things and seeing them as investments as your health. At my house, over the course of a couple of years, I have a tower fan, I have a standing industrial floor fan, I have a neck fan, and 2 handheld fans. Allow yourself to put money aside for these investments if it's viable for you. The way that I see it, if you are constantly too hot or too cold, the cost for you to run fans or heating in your home is going to be less than the amount that you spend trying to self-soothe when you're dysregulated and not making the most conscious or present decisions. When you're on the go, again, just think about clothing. If you struggle with being too cold, things like scarves, gloves, just keep it in your bag at all times, even if you think it's gonna be warm enough. Don't let yourself get caught out. Just be mindful of those things and know yourself when it comes to that. And for being hot, like my fellow hot-blooded girlies, I'm not a reptile in a past life. I am a hot-blooded carnal mammal, apparently. Keep fans on you, breathable fabrics, and water. The water is essential. The second section of my little ADHD care plan is emotional needs. The big one that I will always stan is therapy. If it's accessible for you, or at any point you can get on a waiting list or get any sessions, is going to be so beneficial for you. Another one, and probably one of the biggest ones for me, is being in spaces where you feel validated. Validating emotional spaces where loved ones accept you as you are, where the parts of your ADHD that bring beautiful, vivacious, zesty things to your personality are treasured and celebrated, but also they're there to support you for the parts that you find really difficult and challenging. If there are people in your life that make you feel invalidated, make you feel unsafe, make you feel like you need to mask, get rid of them. Take them out of your life. There are so many beautiful people in this world waiting to accept you. If your emotional capacity and space is taken up by people that make you feel like you're not worthy and not deserving of being your true authentic self, they've got to go. In terms of social settings, I think it's really just sitting with you as a person and knowing who you are. I've always found large friendship groups really stressful. I find the emotional dynamic really quite intense. I am much more comfortable in one-to-one settings, very small groups. These acts of understanding yourself is working on embracing who you are and what you need, allowing yourself to put yourself in spaces that you know you can thrive in or that you're comfortable in. Surround yourself with lived experiences of people with ADHD, support groups, forums, Facebook groups, social media is absolutely amazing. There is a whole community out there. There are also apps like Meetup or Facebook events where people organise kind of meetups with other people with ADHD. The more you surround yourself in these places, the more stories you can hear, the less isolated you can feel in your lived experiences. Especially if you're undiagnosed, I found a lot of solace in places like Reddit. I live on Reddit. Reddit makes me feel so not alone in the world. It's just a really good space to feel validated, and that can be so helpful when you can live in a world where you feel like you're not understood. In terms of rejection sensitivity, dysphoria, rejection is tough. There is no beating around the bush on that one. Rejection is tough for anybody. It's even tougher for people with ADHD. chemically. This is one that I mainly work in therapy, to be honest, because I feel like it is a really, really individual experience, and there are some areas of your life where you will struggle with it a lot more than others. For example, if you grew up queer and had to be closeted, if you struggled academically, if you struggle to make friends, if you struggle to maintain friendships, think about the areas that you find more difficult and try to identify patterns and triggers, especially if they relate to multiple different areas of your life. I find that a good way to help this is journaling, talking to other people who are neurodiverse, and again, Reddit. I love Reddit, okay? Reddit helps so much. And kind of leading into the next section, work on having the confidence to clearly tell people what your wants and needs are. At work, in friendships, in relationships, and most importantly to yourself, you deserve to take up space. And a big part of ADHD and having ADHD in a neurotypical society is that from school and family settings and so many different settings in our life, you are made to feel like you are too much or have to be something different. Taking up the space that you deserve is so validating and affirming, and being in the right spaces will just help you to start to blossom and realize that you are beautiful and wonderful just as you are and just the way that your brain works. And the third section is accommodations. Even though I've done it a bit throughout this video, I feel like the best way to explain this section is just to kind of take you through my personal accommodations and the systems I use to manage my ADHD without medication. These are the items, needs, reminders, boundaries that I set with myself and other people to keep myself regulated, keep myself calm, and generally just make my life a little bit easier. In terms of my physiological needs, I mentioned most of these earlier. Things like keeping fans on me, having food stocked up in the house, breathable clothing, just really checking in when I'm overwhelmed and going, okay, basic needs. Basic needs first. If I'm spiraling or feeling really, really overwhelmed, I will go through water, food, surroundings, temperature, try and fulfill some of my sensory needs, and whatever is on my mind after that is probably what's actually affecting me, but all of these other physical factors that kind of underpinning that and amplifying it are definitely making it more difficult. In my kitchen is organized a little bit weird. Anything in my fridge or cupboard that is perishable can go off is at eye level. So that whenever I open the cupboards, I can see it straight away and see if it's starting to go off and see if I need to use it. We also don't have a mass extensive cutlery and extra plates and dishes in our kitchen. I think we have 2 pans maybe? Found that less dishes, less cutlery, more incentive to wash them up when they've all run out. I have to dress for the weather, even if it's not sexy. I have a pair of Crocs, they are my emergency Crocs. It sometimes pains me that I could be turning the look, but it's 28 degrees, and if I turn the look, I'm gonna have a miserable, overstimulated, really difficult day. I gotta do myself a favor. I'm gonna put on the breathable fabrics, live my little summer life with my fans on, and stay hydrated. And my last one for this section is I have alarms set to eat. I have alarms set for pretty much everything. Everything on my phone is a reminder, constantly. Because when the timer goes off, I will remember there was something that I needed to do. In terms of emotional needs, therapy. Therapy. I go to therapy a lot. As much as I can afford, I go to therapy. I think it's vital for self-development, self-improvement, self-management. I highly recommend that if you are neurodiverse or suspect you're neurodiverse, finding a therapist that matches you, which I'm gonna do another video on, don't you worry, is life-changing. In terms of work, some things that I ask for is I ask for instructions wherever possible to be written down. If someone's trying to speak to me while I'm on the phone, it's my literal worst nightmare. It's probably one of my big ADHD crises that I have is when 2 people speak to me at the same time. I very kindly just do this, and it signals you're going to have to wait until I finish this conversation because I cannot split my attention between the 2, and I'll be very overwhelmed during and afterwards if I do. Depending on what happens in my day, I also might take 5 just in the toilet or a quiet space to focus on my breathing if there's any kind of conflict that arises. I find that if I just give myself those few minutes just to it out my system, I can stay regulated, whereas if those little things happen and I don't take stock of the little ones, they can accumulate throughout the day, and before I know it, I'm completely overwhelmed by lunchtime. In terms of my friends and friendships, I often say the message, I don't have the capacity to respond to this right now, and I want to give you my full attention and the attention that you deserve. I will get back to this when I can. This statement has been so helpful in allowing me to make sure that I know that my friends know that they're still loved and that I still care about them. I just don't quite have the brain space. And then the crucial one is I always put the message on unread. There is nothing like the guilt of seeing a really important message, really wanting to respond to it and give you that time, and you open it and you forget it exists and you come back to it 4 months later. The unread button is vital for me making sure that I don't fall behind on communicating with my friends who I really love really deeply, but might not always have the capacity to respond to frequently. Set yourself realistic social plans and don't accept ones you know you're going to find difficult. For me personally, kind of my ADHD and being sober tie in automatically with each other. It means that I am often in situations where a lot of situations will be an absolute sensory nightmare for me and I will get overwhelmed really, really easily. In these situations, I just turn down plans I know I will find difficult, overwhelming, or overstimulating. This can be really difficult to start off with. I struggled with it a lot because I had a lot of FOMO and I felt like I was letting people down, but realistically, if I'm going to something to essentially damage my balance and damage my peace, whatever I can get out of it, unless it's something that is absolutely amazing for me that I really don't want to miss out on, is probably not going to be worth it if it means that I'm going to have to take the day after or a few days afterwards recovering from it. And my last one for this section, confiding in my friends. I have a really, really good support network and a lot of neurospicy friends. It's funny how we all gravitate towards each other because that shared lived experience makes such a difference. In terms of a relationship, understanding relationships won't be 50-50 all the time. This one is really, really vital for me, especially when I feel like I'm not being the best partner or I just have a really, really low capacity. People that love you will allow you that give and take, and you give that give and take back too because you love them and you care for them. Reminding myself that I don't have to be perfect to be loved. Yeah, that's a game changer. In my most natural, authentic, chaotic, frenzied, overwhelmed form, I am still worthy, and the person that I'm choosing to confide in, or the people that I'm choosing to confide in, do really, really care about me. In this form, as I am right now, is really, really validating. And my final one for kind of my emotional needs is giving myself space to be my most authentic self. For me personally, one of these is stimming, especially in conversations with people I'm comfortable with, especially when I'm eating. There's lots of hands and lots of just happy gestures, allowing myself to express my natural nervous system getting out all the things it likes to do. I also spend a lot of time honoring my inner child and doing inner child activities. Often this looks like childhood loves. The 90s kids or the early 2000s kids knew about the Go-Go's Crazy Bones. That's gonna make my inner child so happy. This also looks like my childhood love of Pokemon. Things that made me happy when I was a child and they make me happy now, they will make me happy forevermore. That's really, really important for me, honoring my emotional needs. My final section is my other section. These are just other things I do to make my life easier. I am really, really, really sensitive to noise. Loud noises really, really startled me. Even when I was a child, if a teacher shouted in the classroom, even if it wasn't at me, I would cry every single time. Sometimes still do. I try to stay away from busy roads where possible. Noise cancelling headphones or earphones are really, really beneficial. And if I'm feeling a little bit off, avoiding busy or crowded places is kind of a non-negotiable. This one is huge. This is my biggest tip. If you take one thing from this video, have your calendar in your phone. Having my calendar in my notes app on my phone has been life-changing. It's genuinely made me feel organized for the first time ever. I've had so many paper diaries. Every single one has been abandoned. They've been abandoned. I don't even know where they are because I'll write in the diary, I'll plan everything out, and then I never ever open it. Ever. On my phone, the second I remember something, I put it straight in my notes app, write it anywhere, because as soon as it's out of my brain and written down, it's somewhere. It's somewhere. And that's better than just saying, oh, I'll write that down, and then you never do, and it's gone forever. I sometimes, if I'm really, really busy or just have low capacity, I will schedule in time to respond to messages. I really love communicating via voice notes. I find it a lot more personal than texting, but I also find phone calls quite stressful. And often if people call me out of the blue, I don't respond. I find being constantly contactable a little bit overwhelming. By having this allotted time, I can have that time to really connect and commit my energy to my friends and my loved ones. In doing that, I feel like I show up in those conversations and actually get a lot out of it, rather than skirting and rushing about and trying to speak to everybody and feeling a bit overwhelmed and like I'm giving out the capacity that I actually need for myself, overwhelming myself in the process. I'm a serial outfit repeater. I have my favorite sensory clothes. I know what works with what, and I will rewear it for 4 to 5 years if it still fits me and it still makes me feel good. Important items. I always put my important items back in the same place or places. For example, my Oyster card is either in my bedside table, in my left pocket, or on the kitchen counter. And the one time it wasn't in any of those places, spoiler alert, it was in the washing machine. And it did still work. It also still worked the second time it went through the washing machine. The headphones have not been so lucky. And my final one for my other section and general things that help me regulate my little neurodiverse brain is breathwork and meditation. Get in touch with my breath is an amazing way to plant myself and ground myself. I do this through yoga, meditation in the evenings, anything that I need to remind myself to just breathe and just bring my nervous system back down is super, super helpful. There are many, many more. I'm sure I could go on forever. This video could go on forever. I'm very, very passionate about it. Gorgeous, gorgeous girls use their accommodations and set their boundaries, and we do what? We thrive because of it. There we go. I hope my insight into how I manage my ADHD without medication has been helpful for you. Maybe it's giving you some new ideas to try on yourself, or just giving yourself some comfort that this is a very universal experience that we're all trying to navigate. You are not alone, and I found that separating my needs into this system really helps me remember and identify what I might actually need in certain situations, especially when I'm feeling overwhelmed. My physical needs, my emotional needs, and my accommodations. Usually a combination of all those three, or something from each, and I'll be able to re-regulate myself and just bring myself back down to a place that's a little bit more measured, and a little bit more calm, and a little bit less overwhelmed, and a little bit more zen. ADHD is very, very individual for each person, and this list is not at all extensive. These are all based off my own experiences and the things that have worked for me, and now by setting all these practices in and just really committing to a few of them each day, a lot of these things have become natural practices in my life, and I feel like I can manage my ADHD quite successfully 91% of the time. And the time it gets the better of me, that's okay, because I'm only human. Really take that time to understand yourself and what you need, and clearly ask yourself and other people what it is that you need. ADHD is classed as a disability, and you deserve to have the physical, emotional, and practical support in place to make your life easier and navigate this crazy, crazy world. I love you so very much for being here. Stay sexy as always. I will see you in the next video. Mwah.